The rain-soaked golden retriever limped through the industrial district at dawn, his expensive collar hidden beneath matted fur. While across town, a billionaire woke to the devastating realization that her beloved companion had vanished during the night. Diana Harper pressed her trembling fingers against her temples as she stood in her penthouse overlooking the Seattle skyline. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city awakening, but she saw none of it. All she could see was the empty dog bed in the corner of her bedroom, the untouched water bowl, the silence where there should have been the gentle snoring of her best friend. "Maxwell," she whispered, her voice cracking. She had already searched every room of her sprawling apartment twice, called his name until her throat was raw, and now stood frozen with the kind of panic that made her feel utterly powerless. A feeling she was not accustomed to. Diana Harper had built her technology empire from the ground up. At 32, she was worth more than most people could comprehend, had been featured on the cover of Fortune magazine, and had revolutionized the way small businesses managed their online presence. She commanded boardrooms, negotiated million-dollar deals, and had turned down acquisition offers that would have made her even wealthier. But none of that mattered now. None of her money or influence could tell her where Maxwell was. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called her head of security. "Find him," she said simply. "I don't care what it costs. Find my dog." Across the city, in a neighborhood where the buildings needed paint and the streets needed fixing, Carter Phillips was already awake. He had been up since 5, which was nothing new. His daughter Emma would be stirring soon, and he liked to have breakfast ready before she woke. It was one of the small things he could control in their increasingly complicated lives. Carter stood at the stove in their modest 2-bedroom apartment, flipping pancakes with practiced efficiency. At 34, he had the kind of weathered handsomeness that came from too many long nights and hard decisions. His dark hair was getting a bit too long, his jaw was covered in a day's worth of stubble, and his work clothes hung on a frame that had once been fuller. But his green eyes were still sharp, still determined, and when he heard Emma's door creak open, they filled with warmth. "Morning, sweetheart," he called without turning around. "Morning, Daddy." Emma shuffled into the kitchen, her 7-year-old face still soft with sleep, her blonde hair a tangled mess around her shoulders. She climbed into her chair at their small table, dragging her stuffed rabbit with her. "Is it Saturday?" "It is," Carter confirmed, sliding 2 pancakes onto her plate. "Which means we've got the whole day together. What do you want to do?" Emma's face lit up. "Can we go to the park, please?" Carter smiled, though it tugged at something in his chest. The park was free, which was good, because free was about all they could afford these days. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage, and while his boss Tom was decent enough, the pay was barely enough to cover rent, food, and the medical bills that kept piling up from Emma's mother's final illness 2 years ago. "The park sounds perfect," he said, sitting down across from her with his own plate. He had given himself 1 pancake to her too. "Eat up, and then we'll get ready." They finished breakfast together, Carter listening as Emma chattered about a book her teacher had read in school, about a princess who saved herself instead of waiting for a prince. He loved these moments, loved the sound of her voice, loved that, despite everything they had been through, she could still be excited about stories and parks and ordinary Saturday mornings. An hour later, they were walking hand in hand down the cracked sidewalks toward Riverside Park. It was a decent walk, about 15 minutes, but Emma never complained. She skipped beside him, humming to herself, pointing out interesting rocks and flowers growing through the concrete. "Daddy, look." Emma suddenly pulled free from his hand and ran toward something near a dumpster behind a closed-down restaurant. Carter's heart jumped into his throat. "Emma, wait!" He jogged after her, his protective instincts flaring. This neighborhood was not dangerous exactly, but it was not the kind of place where you let a 7-year-old run off alone. But Emma had already dropped to her knees beside what Carter now saw was a dog. A large golden retriever, soaking wet despite the fact that it had not rained since yesterday and clearly in distress. "Oh, buddy," Carter said softly, approaching slowly. The dog's eyes were unfocused, and it was shivering violently. "Emma, honey, step back. We don't know if he's friendly." "He's hurt, Daddy," Emma said, her voice thick with tears. "We have to help him." Carter knelt beside his daughter, examining the dog more carefully. It was definitely a he, and despite his bedraggled state, Carter could tell this was a well-bred, well-cared-for animal. His coat was matted and dirty now, but underneath was quality grooming, and there, barely visible under the thick fur, was a collar. "Okay," Carter said gently. "Okay, let's see if he'll let me check him out." He extended his hand slowly, letting the dog sniff him. The retriever's tail gave a weak thump, and Carter took that as permission to touch him. His hands moved carefully over the dog's body, checking for injuries. There was a cut on one of his back paws, nothing too serious, but the dog was clearly exhausted and possibly dehydrated. "We need to get him to a vet," Emma said urgently. Carter's stomach tightened. A vet meant money they did not have, but he looked at his daughter's pleading eyes, then back at the suffering animal, and knew there was only one choice. "Let's get him home first," Carter said. "Get him warm and give him some water. Then we'll figure out the rest." The dog was heavy, easily 70 pounds, but Carter managed to lift him carefully. The retriever did not struggle, just rested his head against Carter's chest with a soft whimper. Emma walked beside them, one small hand resting on the dog's side, her face serious with concern. Getting the dog up 3 flights of stairs to their apartment was a challenge, but Carter managed. Once inside, he laid the retriever on an old blanket in the living room and filled a bowl with water. The dog drank gratefully, then rested his head on his paws with a deep sigh. "Good boy," Emma whispered, sitting beside him and gently stroking his head. Carter examined the collar more closely. It was expensive leather, hand-tooled, with a silver tag that read Maxwell and had a phone number engraved on the back. "Maxwell," Carter said aloud. "That's your name, huh?" The dog's tail thumped once at the sound of his name. "There's a phone number, Daddy," Emma said, leaning over to look. "We can call his owner." Carter pulled out his phone, a beat-up device he had had for 3 years, and dialed the number. It rang twice before someone picked up. "Hello." The voice was female, breathless, desperate. "Hi," Carter said. "I'm calling about a dog named Maxwell. I found him this morning, and this number was on his collar." There was a sound on the other end that might have been a sob. "You found him. Is he okay? Where are you?" "He's a little banged up, but I think he'll be fine," Carter said. "We're in the Riverside area near the old industrial district." "He was pretty tired and has a cut on his paw, but I'm sending a car right now," the woman interrupted. "Please, can you text me your exact address? I'll have someone there in 20 minutes. Carter hesitated. Their apartment was nothing to be ashamed of, but it was a far cry from what he imagined this woman's world looked like. Still, it was not about his pride. It was about getting this dog back to his owner. "Sure," he said. "I'll text it to you." "Thank you," the woman said, and the raw emotion in her voice made Carter's chest tighten. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means." She hung up, and Carter stood there for a moment, looking down at Maxwell and Emma. His daughter had stretched out on the floor beside the dog, her head resting against his side, both of them looking content despite the circumstances. "His owner is coming," Carter said softly. Emma's face fell. "Already? But we just found him." "He belongs to someone, sweetheart." "Someone who's been very worried about him." Emma nodded, understanding but sad. "Can we keep him company until she gets here?" "Of course." Carter texted the address, then went to the kitchen to grab some bread and a bit of leftover chicken from last night's dinner. He shredded the chicken and brought it to Maxwell, who ate it carefully, his tail wagging more strongly now. 20 minutes turned into 30, and Carter was starting to wonder if something had gone wrong when there was a sharp knock at his door. He opened it to find a woman in her early 30s standing in the hallway, flanked by 2 men in dark suits who were clearly security. but Carter barely noticed the security team. He was too busy taking in the woman herself. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost unreal, with dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, high cheekbones, and eyes that were currently red-rimmed from crying. She wore clothes that probably cost more than his monthly rent, designer labels that he only recognized from billboards and magazine ads. Everything about her screamed wealth and sophistication and a world completely foreign to his own. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice urgent. "Right this way." Carter stepped aside, and Diana Harper brushed past him into his apartment. The moment Maxwell saw her, he struggled to his feet, tail wagging frantically. Diana dropped to her knees on Carter's worn floor without a second thought, her arms wrapping around the dog as tears streamed down her face. "You stupid, wonderful, terrible dog," she sobbed into his fur. "Don't you ever scare me like that again." Emma stood nearby, watching with wide eyes. Carter gently placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, feeling the same strange emotion that seemed to be filling the room. This was more than just a woman and her pet. This was something deeper. Diana stayed like that for a long moment, just holding Maxwell, before she finally pulled back and started checking him over with the same thoroughness Carter had used earlier. Her hands found the cut on his paw, and she looked up at Carter with worried eyes. "This needs stitches," she said. "Probably," Carter agreed, "but it's not too deep. He should be fine with proper care." Diana stood, wiping her eyes, and seemed to really see Carter and Emma for the first time. Her gaze softened when it landed on Emma. "Hi," she said gently. "What's your name?" "Emma," his daughter replied shyly. "We found Maxwell behind a restaurant. He was cold and scared." "Thank you for taking care of him," Diana said, her voice thick. "Both of you, I can't tell you how much this means to me." She reached into her purse and pulled out a checkbook, which made Carter's stomach drop. He knew what was coming next, and he did not like it. "Please, let me give you a reward," Diana said, already starting to write. "No," Carter said firmly. "That's not necessary." Diana looked up, surprised. "But you found my dog. You took care of him, called me right away. The least I can do is—" "We did what anyone would do," Carter interrupted. "We're just glad he's okay." Diana studied him for a moment, her pen hovering over the check. Carter met her gaze steadily, even though something about looking into her eyes made his pulse quicken in a way he had not experienced in years. "At least let me cover any expenses you had," Diana tried again. "Food, anything. It was some leftover chicken and tap water," Carter said with a slight smile. "I think we can manage." One of the security men cleared his throat. "Miss Harper, we should get Maxwell to the veterinary hospital." Diana nodded but did not move. She was still looking at Carter, an expression on her face he could not quite read. Curiosity, maybe, or confusion. People probably did not say no to her very often. "I'm Diana," she said finally, extending her hand. "Diana Harper." "Carter Phillips," he replied, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, professional, but her skin was soft in a way that made him acutely aware of how rough his own hands were from years of working with tools and engines. "And I'm Emma Phillips," his daughter piped up, not wanting to be left out. Diana's face broke into a genuine smile, the first real one since she had arrived. "It's very nice to meet you both. Emma, you must be a very kind person to help an animal in need." Emma beamed with pride. "Daddy says we should always help when we can." "Your daddy sounds like a smart man." Carter felt his face warm and busied himself with helping Diana get Maxwell to his feet. The dog was moving better now, the food and water and warmth having done their work. "I have a car downstairs," Diana said, "but I don't think Maxwell can manage the stairs on his own." "I'll carry him," Carter offered. Diana looked like she wanted to protest, but then she saw the determination in his face and simply nodded. "Thank you." Carter lifted Maxwell again, and the group made their way down the stairs. Emma held onto the railing, chattering to Diana about how they had been on their way to the park when they found Maxwell, how scared she had been that he was badly hurt, how happy she was that he had a home to go back to. Diana listened attentively, asking questions, treating Emma's words with the same respect she might give a business associate. Carter found himself appreciating that more than he wanted to admit. Outside, a sleek black SUV was waiting, its engine running. The driver jumped out to open the back door, and Carter carefully settled Maxwell onto the leather seats. The dog immediately stretched out, clearly ready to be back in luxury. Diana turned to Carter and Emma, and there was something in her expression that looked almost reluctant. "I really can't thank you enough," she said. "If you ever need anything, we're fine," Carter said, but his tone was gentler this time. "Just take care of Maxwell." Diana nodded, then on impulse, she reached out and gave Emma a quick hug. "You're a very special girl," she told her. "Don't ever change." Emma hugged her back fiercely, and when Diana pulled away, there were fresh tears in her eyes. She looked at Carter one more time, opened her mouth as if to say something, then seemed to think better of it. Instead, she just smiled, climbed into the SUV, and was gone. Carter and Emma stood on the sidewalk, watching the vehicle disappear into traffic. The whole encounter had lasted maybe 30 minutes, but Carter felt strangely unsettled by it. "She was nice," Emma said, slipping her hand into his. "Yeah," Carter agreed, "she was." "Can we still go to the park?" Carter looked down at his daughter and felt the world snap back into focus. This was what mattered. Not some beautiful woman from another world, not the strange flutter in his chest when she had smiled at him. Just Emma and their day together, and the simple joy of pushing her on a swing. "Absolutely," he said. "Let's go." They spent the rest of the morning at the park, and Carter tried to push the encounter with Diana Harper out of his mind. He mostly succeeded, except for the moments when Emma would mention Maxwell, her face lighting up with the memory of the big golden dog. But that night, after Emma was asleep, Carter found himself looking up Diana Harper on his phone. The articles that came up were numerous and impressive. She had founded Harper Technologies at 25, had grown it into a multi-billion-dollar company by the time she was 30, and was known for her innovative approach to business and her ruthless efficiency in negotiations. She was also notoriously private, rarely giving interviews, and there were very few personal details available about her life. Carter closed his browser, feeling foolish. What did it matter who she was? They had returned her dog, she had said thank you, and that was the end of it. Their worlds would never intersect again. He had no way of knowing how wrong he was. Diana sat in the waiting room of the 24-hour emergency veterinary hospital, Maxwell's head resting in her lap. The cut on his paw had indeed needed stitches, and the vet had kept him for observation because he was dehydrated and had some minor cuts and bruises from whatever misadventure had led to his escape. But Maxwell was going to be fine. That was all that mattered. Except Diana could not stop thinking about the man who had found him, Carter Phillips. She rolled the name around in her mind, remembering the way he had stood in his modest apartment with quiet dignity, the way he had refused her money without making it into a confrontation, the way he had looked at his daughter with such obvious love. And that daughter, Emma. Sweet, kind, concerned about a dog she had just met. There was something about that little family that had touched Diana in a way she had not expected. She pulled out her phone and, feeling only slightly guilty, had her assistant run a background check. It was invasive, she knew, but she told herself it was just precautionary, making sure the people who had found Maxwell were trustworthy. The information came back within an hour. Carter Phillips, 34, widower, worked as a mechanic at Tom's Auto Repair. Behind on several medical bills from his late wife's illness, but never missed a rent payment, had sole custody of his daughter Emma, age 7. No criminal record, no red flags, just a man doing his best to raise his child alone. Diana's chest tightened as she read the details. She knew grief, though not like his. She knew struggle, though hers had been different. She had fought boardrooms and investors and 1,000 people telling her she could not do what she had set out to do. But Carter Phillips was fighting something harder. He was fighting to give his daughter a good life with limited resources and no safety net. And he had still taken the time to help a lost dog. Had still refused her money. Had still looked at her with those steady green eyes and made her feel like just a person, not a billionaire, not a CEO, just someone whose dog had been found. "Miss Harper." The vet appeared in the doorway. "Maxwell is ready to go home. I want to see him again in a week to check on those stitches, but he's going to be just fine." Diana stood, relief flooding through her. "Thank you, can I see him?" "Of course." She followed the vet to the recovery area, where Maxwell was already standing, his tail wagging at the sight of her. Diana knelt and wrapped her arms around him again, breathing in his familiar scent. "Let's go home, buddy," she whispered. But even as she said it, her mind was still on a shabby apartment across town, on a little girl who had cared so much about a stranger's dog, on a man who had carried Maxwell down 3 flights of stairs and refused a reward. She told herself it was gratitude, just gratitude, nothing more. Monday morning came too quickly for Carter. He dropped Emma off at school, watching her run into the building with her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, then headed to the garage. His body ached from sleeping on their lumpy couch, which he had been doing since Emma had gotten too old to share his room and needed her own space. But he pushed the discomfort aside and focused on the work ahead. Tom's auto repair was not fancy, but it was honest work, and Tom was a decent boss. A gruff man in his 60s who had owned the garage for 30 years, he paid what he could and did not ask questions when Carter occasionally showed up looking exhausted from a night spent worrying about bills. "Morning," Tom grunted when Carter walked in. "Got a transmission job for you." "Blue Honda in Bay 2. "On it," Carter replied, grabbing his tools. He lost himself in the work, letting the familiar rhythm of diagnosis and repair calm his mind. This was something he was good at, something he could control. Engines made sense. You found the problem, you fixed it, and things ran smoothly again. If only life were that simple. He was elbow deep in the transmission when Tom appeared beside him, looking uncharacteristically uncomfortable. "Got someone here asking for you," Tom said. Carter looked up, confused. "For me?" "Yeah, some fancy lady. Says it's important." Carter's heart skipped a beat. He wiped his hands on a rag and followed Tom out to the front office, where Diana Harper stood looking completely out of place among the oil-stained floors and faded posters. She was wearing a perfectly tailored business suit, her hair in another sleek ponytail, and she looked every inch the powerful executive. But when she saw Carter, her expression softened into something almost uncertain. "Hi," she said. "I'm sorry to bother you at work. Is Maxwell okay?" Carter asked immediately. "He's fine," Diana assured him. "Perfect, actually. The vet says he'll make a full recovery." "That's good, I'm glad." They stood there for a moment, an awkward silence stretching between them. Tom had retreated to give them privacy, but Carter was acutely aware of where they were, of the contrast between Diana's polished appearance and his grease-stained work clothes. "Then why are you here?" Carter asked finally, not unkindly. Diana took a breath. "I wanted to thank you properly. I know you wouldn't take money, but I thought maybe you'd let me take you and Emma out to dinner. As a thank you." Carter's immediate instinct was to refuse, but something in Diana's face stopped him. She looked nervous, he realized. Diana Harper, Billionaire CEO, looked nervous asking him to dinner. "You don't need to do that," he said carefully. "I know I don't need to," Diana replied, "but I'd like to. Emma was so sweet with Maxwell, and you both went out of your way to help when you didn't have to. Please let me do something nice for you." Carter hesitated. Dinner with Diana Harper. It seemed impossible, like something from a different life. But then he thought about Emma, about how excited she would be to see Maxwell again, to have an adventure that was different from their usual routine. "Just dinner?" he asked. "Just dinner," Diana confirmed. "Anywhere you'd like." "Okay," Carter said, surprising himself, "but nowhere too fancy. Emma's 7. She needs chicken fingers and fries, not caviar." Diana's face lit up with a genuine smile that made Carter's breath catch. Chicken fingers and fries sound perfect. Are you free Saturday? Saturday was their day, his and Emma's, but Carter found himself nodding. Saturday works. Great. Diana pulled out her phone. Can I get your number? I'll text you the details. They exchanged numbers, and Diana left with another smile and a promise to be in touch. Carter stood in the garage's front office for a long moment after she was gone, trying to figure out what had just happened. She's way out of your league, buddy, Tom said, appearing from the back room with a knowing look. It's just dinner, Carter said. As a thank you. Tom snorted. Sure it is. But as Carter went back to work on the transmission, he could not shake the feeling that he had just agreed to something that was going to change his life. The week passed in a blur. Emma was thrilled when Carter told her about the dinner, asking 100 questions about Maxwell and Diana and where they were going to eat. Carter fielded them as best he could, trying to keep expectations reasonable, but his daughter's excitement was infectious. Diana texted him midweek with a suggestion for a family-friendly restaurant in a nice but not ostentatious part of town. Carter appreciated the thoughtfulness, the fact that she had not suggested some place that would make him and Emma feel out of place. They texted back and forth a few more times over the week, mostly logistics, but occasionally Diana would send him a photo of Maxwell, and Carter would show Emma, who would squeal with delight. It felt natural somehow. Easy. On Friday night, Carter found himself standing in front of his closet, trying to figure out what to wear. He did not own anything fancy, just work clothes and a few casual shirts and jeans. Finally, he settled on his best pair of jeans, not the ones with the worn knees, and a dark blue button-down shirt that Emma had given him for his birthday last year. You look handsome, Daddy, Emma said from his doorway, making him jump. Thanks, sweetheart. You should be asleep. I'm too excited, Emma said, bouncing on her toes. Can I wear my purple dress tomorrow? Absolutely. Emma ran off to her room, and Carter could hear her pulling out clothes, planning her outfit. He smiled despite his nerves. Whatever happened tomorrow, at least Emma would have a good time. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm but not hot. Carter helped Emma into her purple dress, the one they had bought at a thrift store for a school event, and she twirled in front of the mirror with delight. He had brushed her hair until it shone, and she looked beautiful and happy, and so much like her mother that his heart ached. Ready? He asked. Ready? They took the bus to the restaurant, Emma chattering the whole way about what she was going to order and whether Maxwell would remember her. Carter listened and responded when appropriate, but his mind was elsewhere, circling around the fact that he was about to have dinner with Diana Harper. It meant nothing, he told himself. She was grateful, wanted to say thank you, and that was all. They would have a nice meal, Emma would get to see Maxwell, and then they would go back to their separate lives. Simple. Except when they arrived at the restaurant and saw Diana waiting outside with Maxwell on a leash, nothing felt simple at all. Diana was dressed more casually than Carter had ever seen her, in dark jeans and a cream-colored sweater that somehow still managed to look expensive and elegant. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders, and when she saw them approaching, her face broke into a smile that made Carter forget how to breathe. Emma, Carter, she called out, and Maxwell's tail started wagging frantically. Emma ran the last few steps and dropped to her knees to hug Maxwell, who licked her face enthusiastically. Diana laughed, a sound that was warm and genuine and nothing like the polished executive Carter had read about in articles. He's been excited all day, Diana said, looking up at Carter. I think he remembered you. We remembered him too, Carter said, and suddenly they were just standing there looking at each other while Emma played with Maxwell on the sidewalk. Diana was the first to look away. Should we head inside? I made a reservation. The restaurant was perfect. Nice enough to feel special but casual enough that Emma did not feel out of place. They were seated at a corner booth, and the staff were accommodating about Maxwell, who settled under the table with a contented sigh. Emma kept up a steady stream of conversation, asking Diana questions about Maxwell, about what he liked to eat, what games he liked to play, whether he had other dog friends. Diana answered everything with patience and warmth, treating Emma's questions with respect. Carter found himself relaxing, enjoying the way Diana interacted with his daughter, the way she would look at him and smile when Emma said something particularly cute. It felt comfortable, natural, like they had done this before. "So," Diana said after they had ordered, turning her attention to Carter. "Tom's Auto Repair, how long have you worked there?" "About 5 years," Carter replied. "Since my wife got sick, I needed something with steady hours so I could take care of her and Emma." "I'm sorry," Diana said softly. "That must have been incredibly hard." Carter nodded, surprised to find himself wanting to talk about it. "It was. Sarah was diagnosed with cancer when Emma was 4. We had 2 years with her after that, and they were good years, mostly. Hard, but good. She got to see Emma start school. Got to have one more Christmas, and then she was gone." Emma had stopped chattering and was leaning against Carter's side, her small face serious. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "She was very brave," Emma said quietly. "Mommy was the bravest person ever." Diana's eyes were shining with unshed tears. "She must have been amazing to have a daughter like you." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of loss and love hanging in the air. Then Maxwell, sensing the somber mood, poked his head up from under the table and rested his chin on Emma's lap, making her giggle. "Maxwell is very good at making people feel better," Diana said, grateful for the interruption. "How long have you had him?" Carter asked. 3 years. "I adopted him from a rescue when he was 2. I was working too much, living alone in this huge apartment, and I realized I needed something to come home to, someone to take care of." Diana smiled down at her dog. "Best decision I ever made. No family." Carter asked, then immediately felt like he had overstepped. "Sorry, that's too personal." "No, it's okay," Diana said. "My parents passed away when I was in college, car accident. I was an only child, so after that it was just me. I threw myself into building my company, proving I could do it, and by the time I looked up, I was 30 and alone except for business associates and employees." "That sounds lonely," Carter said. Diana met his eyes. It is sometimes, but Maxwell helps." Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Diana asked about Emma's school, her favorite subjects, her friends. Emma asked Diana about running a company, and Diana explained it in terms a 7-year-old could understand, comparing it to being the captain of a very large team. Carter watched them interact and felt something shifting in his chest. Diana was not what he had expected. She was warm and funny and surprisingly down to earth when she was not in her CEO armor. And the way she looked at Emma, with genuine interest and affection, made him see her in a completely different light. After dinner, they walked through a nearby park, Maxwell trotting happily between them while Emma ran ahead, pointing out flowers and birds and interesting rocks. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Carter found himself walking beside Diana in comfortable silence. "Thank you for this," he said finally. "Emma is having a great time." "What about you?" Diana asked, glancing up at him. "Are you having a good time?" "Yeah," Carter admitted. "I really am." Diana smiled, and there was something in her expression that made Carter's heart race. They were standing close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that suited her perfectly. "I'd like to do this again," Diana said, and there was a vulnerability in her voice that made Carter realize this was not just about gratitude anymore. "If you'd want to." Carter knew he should say no, knew that their worlds were too different, that this could only lead to complications. But when he looked at Diana, at the hope in her eyes, he found himself nodding. "I'd like that too," he said. Emma ran back to them, breathless and happy, and Diana reached down to take her hand naturally, as if they had been doing this for years. The 3 of them walked back to the restaurant where Diana's car was parked, Maxwell leading the way. "Can we give you a ride home?" Diana offered. Carter hesitated, Their apartment was nothing to be ashamed of, but he still felt self-conscious about the gap between their worlds. Still, it was getting late, and the bus ride would take a while. "Okay," he said. "Thanks." The drive across town was quiet, Emma fighting sleep in the backseat while Carter gave directions from the front. When they pulled up in front of his building, Diana did not react to the peeling paint or the broken streetlight. She just smiled and said she had a wonderful time. "Me too," Emma mumbled sleepily from the back. Carter got out and lifted Emma from the car, settling her against his shoulder. She was getting too big for this, but she wrapped her arms around his neck like she used to when she was little. Diana rolled down her window. "I'll call you," she said. "Okay." Carter carried Emma up the stairs and got her ready for bed, his mind spinning with everything that had happened. As he tucked her in, Emma's eyes fluttered open. "I like Diana," she said sleepily. "Me too, sweetheart. And Maxwell." "And Maxwell," Carter agreed. Emma smiled and drifted off to sleep, and Carter went to his own room, finally allowing himself to think about what was happening. Diana Harper was interested in him. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. He was a mechanic with a 7-year-old daughter and more debt than savings. She was a billionaire who ran a tech empire. It made no sense. But when his phone buzzed with a text from Diana saying simply "thank you for tonight," Carter found himself smiling like a teenager. "You're welcome," he typed back. "Emma's already asking when we can see Maxwell again." The 3 dots appeared, showing Diana was typing, and Carter's heart rate picked up waiting for her response. "How about next weekend? There's a dog park Maxwell loves. Emma might enjoy it." Carter thought about his budget, about the things he needed to pay for, but Emma's happy face tonight kept appearing in his mind. She deserved fun. She deserved good memories, and if he was being honest with himself, he wanted to see Diana again. "Sounds great," he replied. The pattern started there. Every weekend, they would meet up. Sometimes at the dog park, sometimes for lunch, once for a movie that Emma wanted to see. Diana never pushed, never suggested anything extravagant, always seemed content with simple activities that Emma could enjoy. Carter noticed things about her during those weeks, the way she laughed at Emma's jokes, even the ones that were not funny. The way she always had a treat in her pocket for Maxwell. The way she looked at Carter when she thought he was not paying attention, with an expression that made his chest tight and his pulse race. He was falling for her. He knew it was foolish, knew it was setting himself up for heartbreak, but he could not seem to stop. Diana was brilliant and kind and surprisingly vulnerable beneath her polished exterior. She told him about the pressure of running her company, about the loneliness of being at the top, about how she sometimes missed just being a regular person. "You seem pretty regular to me," Carter said one afternoon as they sat on a bench watching Emma throw a ball for Maxwell. Diana looked at him with surprise. "Really?" "Yeah. I mean, sure, you run a billion-dollar company and probably have more money than I can imagine, but you're also just Diana. Someone who loves her dog, who's patient with a 7-year-old's endless questions, who laughs at bad jokes and cries at sad movies." Diana's eyes were soft as she looked at him. "No one's ever said that to me before." "Then they're not really seeing you," Carter said. They were sitting close, their shoulders almost touching, and Carter could feel the electricity between them. He wanted to kiss her, wanted it so badly that his hands were shaking. But Emma was right there, and they were in public, and he was terrified of what it would mean if he crossed that line. Diana seemed to sense his hesitation. She reached over and took his hand, lacing their fingers together. It was a simple gesture, but it felt momentous. "Carter," she said softly, "I really like you." "I really like you too," he replied, his voice rough. "But Diana, I don't know how this could work. Our lives are so different." "Does that matter?" Diana asked. "I don't care about the differences. I care about how I feel when I'm with you, how happy Emma makes me, how you make me feel seen and valued for who I am, not what I have." Carter looked at their joined hands, at Emma playing with Maxwell, at the woman beside him who was looking at him like he was something precious. "I have a daughter," he said. "She comes first, always." "I know," Diana said, and I love that about you. I would never ask you to put anything before her. I'm broke, Carter continued. I have medical debt, and I drive a 15-year-old truck, and I sleep on a couch because Emma needs her own room. I don't care about any of that, Diana said firmly. Carter, look at me. He did, and the intensity in her eyes took his breath away. I have more money than I know what to do with, Diana said, but I've never felt as rich as I do when I'm sitting on a park bench with you and Emma. You've given me something I thought I'd lost. You've given me a family. Carter's throat was tight. Diana, you don't have to say anything right now, Diana interrupted. Just think about it. Think about whether you could see this being something real. Emma came running back, flushed and happy, and the moment passed. But Carter could not stop thinking about Diana's words, about the possibility she was offering. That night, after Emma was asleep, Carter sat on his couch and really thought about it. What would it mean to be with Diana? She would want to help with their financial struggles. He was sure of that, but could he accept it? He had worked so hard to provide for Emma on his own, to be the father his daughter deserved. Taking money from Diana felt like admitting he had failed. But then he thought about Emma's worn-out shoes that he kept meaning to replace, but could not afford yet. About the school field trip next month that cost $50, money he did not have. About the fact that she deserved more than he could give her, and he was killing himself trying to bridge that gap. Maybe accepting help was not weakness. Maybe it was just love. Diana loved them. He could see that now, see it in the way she looked at Emma, in the way she had held his hand like it was something precious. And he loved her. God help him, he loved her with an intensity that scared him. His phone buzzed with a text from Diana. It was a photo of Maxwell curled up on what looked like a very expensive couch, with the caption, "Someone is tired from all that playing today." Carter smiled and typed back, "Emma too. She's already asleep. She's a special kid. You're doing an amazing job with her." Carter's chest tightened. "Thank you. That means a lot." The 3 dots appeared again. "I meant what I said earlier, about wanting this to be real." Carter's fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment. He could pull back now, protect his heart and Emma's, keep their lives simple and uncomplicated. Or he could take a leap of faith. "Me too," he typed. "I want this to be real too." The response came immediately. "Really, really, but we need to take it slow for Emma's sake." "Of course, as slow as you need." Carter smiled at his phone, feeling like a teenager again. "Want to have dinner this week, just the 2 of us? Like a date?" "Yeah, like a date." "I would love that." They made plans for Thursday night. Diana offered to send a car to pick him up, but Carter insisted on meeting her at the restaurant. He wanted to do this right, to court her properly even if she could buy the entire restaurant if she wanted to. He arranged for Emma to have a sleepover at her friend's house, spent an hour picking out his clothes, and even got a haircut. Tom noticed on Wednesday and gave him grief about it, but there was approval in the older man's eyes. Thursday evening found Carter standing outside an Italian restaurant in downtown Seattle, his heart pounding. He was 10 minutes early, which gave him time to question every decision that had led him to this moment. But then he saw Diana walking toward him, and everything else fell away. She was wearing a simple black dress that somehow made her look even more beautiful than usual. Her hair was loose, and she was smiling at him with such genuine happiness that Carter felt like the luckiest man alive. "Hi," she said a little breathlessly. "Hi," Carter replied. "You look beautiful." Diana's smile widened. "You clean up pretty nice yourself." They went inside, and Carter was relieved to find that while the restaurant was nice, it was not so fancy that he felt completely out of place. Diana had chosen well, finding a balance between special and comfortable. Over dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Diana told him about her week at work, about a difficult negotiation with a potential partner. Carter told her about fixing a particularly stubborn engine, about Emma's excitement over a project she was doing at school. They talked about their pasts, their dreams, the things that scared them and the things that made them happy. "I never thought I'd get married," Diana admitted over dessert. I was so focused on my career, on proving myself. And then after my parents died, I think I was afraid to let anyone get close, afraid of losing them too. I get that, Carter said. After Sarah died, I thought that was it for me. I'd had my chance at love, and it was over. I was just going to focus on being a good dad to Emma. What changed? Diana asked softly. Carter met her eyes. You did. You and Maxwell, actually. The way you cared about him, the way you cared about Emma right from the start. You made me remember that life could be about more than just surviving. Diana reached across the table and took his hand. I feel the same way about you. You make me want things I thought I'd given up on. Like what? Carter asked. Like a family, Diana said simply. Like coming home to someone who's happy to see me, like lazy Sunday mornings and ordinary happiness. Carter turned her hand over in his, studying the contrast between her smooth skin and his calloused palms. I come with complications, he warned. Emma will always be my priority, and I don't have much to offer you financially. Carter, Diana said firmly, I don't want your money, I have money. What I want is you. Your strength, your kindness, your integrity. The way you love your daughter, the way you make me feel like I'm more than just my net worth. Carter stood up, still holding her hand, and moved around the table. Diana looked up at him with wide eyes as he leaned down and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and perfect, and when they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. I've wanted to do that for weeks, Carter admitted. Me too, Diana said. They left the restaurant hand in hand, and Diana's driver was waiting outside. But instead of getting in the car, they walked, talking and laughing and stealing kisses in the warm summer night. I don't want this to end, Diana said as they reached the waterfront. It doesn't have to, Carter replied. This is just the beginning. They stood looking out at the water, Carter's arm around Diana's shoulders, and for the first time in years, he let himself believe in happy endings. The next few months were a blur of happiness. Carter and Diana fell into an easy rhythm, balancing their time together with Carter's responsibilities to Emma. Diana was wonderful about it, never pushing, never demanding more time than Carter could give. She fit into their lives like she had always been meant to be there. Emma adored her, and the feeling was clearly mutual. Diana would show up at Emma's school events, would help with homework, would listen to endless stories about Emma's day with genuine interest. She never tried to replace Sarah, never overstepped, but she became a presence in Emma's life that was warm and loving and steady. Carter's financial situation improved dramatically, though not in the way he had feared. Diana never offered him money directly, but she did offer him a better job. Her company needed someone to manage their fleet of vehicles, and she thought Carter would be perfect for it. The salary was 3 times what he made at the garage, with benefits and regular hours. Carter almost refused on principle, not wanting to take advantage of their relationship. But Diana pointed out that he was qualified, that he would be doing her a favor by taking a job she needed filled, and that Emma deserved a father who was not stressed about money all the time. He took the job, and it changed their lives. Suddenly, he could afford to move to a better apartment, one where Emma had her own room and he had a real bed. He could pay off the medical debt that had been hanging over him for years. He could buy Emma new clothes instead of thrift store finds, could say yes to field trips and activities without calculating every dollar. But the best part was the time. With regular hours and weekends off, he could spend more time with Emma and with Diana. They were careful about their relationship, taking things slow for Emma's sake. Diana had her own place and Carter had his, and while they spent a lot of time together, they maintained separate households. It was important to Carter that Emma felt secure, that she did not feel like her life was being turned upside down. 6 months into their relationship, Diana invited them to her place for the first time. Carter had seen it before, briefly, when returning Maxwell, but now he was seeing it as Diana's boyfriend, as someone who might potentially have a future here. The penthouse was stunning, with floor-to-ceiling windows and high-end everything, but Diana had made it homey. There were photos on the walls, books on the shelves, Maxwell's toys scattered around. It was a home, not just a showpiece. Emma was entranced, running from room to room with Maxwell at her heels. Diana showed her the guest room, which had a view of the city that made Emma gasp with delight. "You can stay here whenever you want," Diana told her. "I thought maybe we could have sleepovers sometimes." Emma looked at Carter for permission, and he nodded, smiling. "If you'd like that." "I'd love it," Emma exclaimed, hugging Diana fiercely. That night, they ordered pizza and watched a movie, the three of them curled up on Diana's couch with Maxwell sprawled across their feet. It felt right. It felt like family. After Emma fell asleep in the guest room, Carter and Diana sat on her balcony, looking out at the city lights. "I love you," Carter said. It was the first time he had said it, and his heart was pounding. Diana turned to him, her eyes shining. "I love you too, so much." They kissed, and it was different this time. Deeper, more certain. This was not the beginning anymore. This was real and lasting and true. "Move in with me," Diana said when they pulled apart. Carter's eyebrows rose. "Diana, I know it's fast," Diana interrupted. "But we're together all the time anyway, and I have so much space. Emma could have her own room, and there's an extra room you could use as an office or whatever you want." "Please, just think about it." Carter did think about it. Thought about Emma growing up in a safe neighborhood, going to good schools, having opportunities he could never have given her on his own. Thought about waking up next to Diana every morning, about building a life together instead of just visiting each other's lives. "Okay," he said. Diana's face lit up. "Really? Really? But we do this right. We sit down with Emma, explain what it means, make sure she's comfortable with it." "Of course," Diana agreed immediately. They told Emma the next morning over breakfast. Carter watched his daughter's face carefully, trying to gauge her reaction. "So we would all live together?" Emma asked. "You and me and Diana and Maxwell?" "That's right," Carter confirmed. "But only if you're okay with it. This is your decision too, sweetheart." Emma looked at Diana, then at Maxwell, then back at her father. "Would Diana be like my stepmom?" Diana knelt down to Emma's level. "I would never try to replace your mom," she said gently. "Your mom will always be your mom, and she'll always be special. But I love you very much, and I love your dad, and I would be honored to be part of your family." Emma thought about this for a long moment. Then she threw her arms around Diana's neck. "I want to live together," she said. "I want us to be a family." Diana hugged her back, tears streaming down her face, and Carter had to wipe his own eyes. The move happened over the next month. Carter did not have much to bring, just their personal belongings and a few pieces of furniture that had sentimental value. Everything else, Diana insisted they could replace or she already had. Emma's new room was twice the size of her old one, and Diana let her help decorate it. They spent a weekend painting one wall purple, Emma's favorite color, and shopping for new bedding and posters. Carter watched Diana and Emma together, their heads bent over fabric swatches and paint chips, and felt his heart swell with love. Life in the penthouse was an adjustment, but a good one. Carter still went to work every day, managing Diana's fleet and discovering he had a talent for logistics and organization. Emma thrived in her new school, making friends and joining activities. Diana's work schedule was demanding, but she made sure to be home for dinner most nights, to be present for the important moments. They became a family in all the ways that mattered. Diana came to Emma's school plays and parent-teacher conferences. Carter learned to navigate Diana's social obligations, uncomfortable at first, but growing more confident with her steady support. Emma called Diana by her first name, but the love was no less real for the lack of a title. A year after they moved in together, Carter started thinking about marriage. He wanted to do it right, wanted Emma to be part of it, wanted Diana to know that this was forever. He enlisted Emma's help in planning the proposal. Together, they picked out a ring, something elegant and simple that suited Diana perfectly. Emma was vibrating with excitement, barely able to keep the secret. Carter planned it for a Saturday morning in the park where they had first walked together, where Diana had held his hand, and told him she wanted this to be real. He told Diana he wanted to take a walk, just the two of them and Maxwell, and Emma mysteriously announced she wanted to stay home and read. They walked through the familiar paths, Diana's hand in his, Maxwell trotting ahead. When they reached the bench where they had sat that first time, Carter stopped. "Remember this spot?" he asked. Diana smiled. "Of course. This is where you told me I seemed pretty regular," Carter laughed. "And you told me you wanted this to be real." "Best decision I ever made," Diana said, kissing him softly. "Then maybe you'll make another one," Carter said, and he dropped to one knee. Diana's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. "Diana Harper," Carter said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "You came into my life like a miracle. You love my daughter like she's your own. You make me want to be better, do better, dream bigger. I know I'm not the obvious choice for you. I know our lives started in very different places. But I love you with everything I am, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. Will you marry me?" Diana was crying, nodding before he even finished speaking. "Yes," she said. "Yes, absolutely yes." Carter slipped the ring onto her finger and they kissed while Maxwell barked happily around them. When they pulled apart, Diana was laughing through her tears. "Emma knew about this, didn't she?" Diana asked. "She helped me pick out the ring," Carter admitted. "She wanted to be part of it." "I love you both so much," Diana said. "I can't believe this is my life." They walked back to the penthouse hand in hand, Diana admiring her ring, both of them grinning like fools. When they opened the door, Emma was waiting, barely able to contain herself. "Did you ask her?" Emma demanded. "Did she say yes?" "She said yes," Carter confirmed, and Emma shrieked with joy. She ran to Diana, who scooped her up and spun her around. "We're going to be a real family," Emma said. "We already are," Diana told her. "This just makes it official." They planned the wedding for 6 months later, wanting to take time to do it right. It was smaller than Diana's friends and business associates expected, just close friends and family in a garden ceremony. Emma was the flower girl, walking down the aisle with Maxwell on a leash, both of them wearing matching bow ties that made everyone laugh. When Carter saw Diana walking toward him in her simple white dress, her eyes locked on his, he felt tears prick his eyes. She was so beautiful, and she was choosing him. Choosing them. Choosing this life. The ceremony was short and sweet, their vows personal and heartfelt. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Emma cheered louder than anyone, and Maxwell barked his approval. At the reception, Carter danced with his daughter, then with his wife, feeling like the luckiest man in the world. Diana danced with Emma, both of them laughing, and Carter stood back and just watched them, overwhelmed with gratitude. "You did good, buddy," Tom said, appearing beside him with a glass of champagne. "Real good." "I got lucky," Carter replied. "Nah," Tom disagreed. "You found a lost dog and did the right thing. Everything else just followed." Carter supposed that was true. One small act of kindness had changed everything. Life after the wedding settled into a comfortable rhythm. Diana continued running her company, but she was better about work-life balance now. Carter thrived in his job, even getting promoted to director of operations. Emma flourished, growing into a confident, kind child who loved having two parents who adored her. 2 years after the wedding, Diana came home from a doctor's appointment with news that made them all cry happy tears. She was pregnant. Carter had never even considered having more children, thinking that chapter of his life was closed. But the thought of a baby with Diana filled him with joy. Emma was thrilled at the prospect of being a big sister. She helped set up the nursery, picked out clothes, and read books about babies with an earnestness that was adorable. When their son was born, they named him Matthew, and he was perfect. Carter held him in the hospital, this tiny person who was half Diana and half him, and felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. Emma was a devoted big sister, always wanting to help feed Matthew or change his diaper or just hold him. Diana was a natural mother, patient and loving and completely smitten with their son. Carter watched his family and could hardly believe this was his life. Maxwell, now getting older and grayer, took to the baby with gentle patience, letting Matthew grab his fur and sleeping beside his crib like a guardian. As the years passed, their family grew in love if not in size. Emma grew into a remarkable young woman, smart and kind and grounded despite the wealth she had access to. Matthew was a happy, energetic child who adored his big sister and his parents equally. Carter and Diana's love only deepened with time. They had their challenges, of course. Carter still sometimes felt insecure about the financial disparity between them, and Diana still sometimes worked too much. But they talked through their problems, supported each other, and never forgot what had brought them together in the first place. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they returned to the park where Carter had proposed. Emma was 17 now, preparing for college, and Matthew was 8, running ahead with their new dog, a golden retriever puppy they had adopted after Maxwell had passed peacefully in his sleep 2 years earlier. "Do you ever regret it?" Carter asked, holding Diana's hand as they walked. "Marrying me, all the complications that came with it." Diana looked at him like he was crazy. "Are you kidding? Carter, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Emma and Matthew, this family we've built. I would not change a single thing." "Not even the part where you had to deal with my stubborn pride about money," Carter teased. "Especially not that," Diana said. "Your pride is part of your integrity. It's one of the things I love most about you." "I love you," Carter said, pulling her close. "I love you too," Diana replied. "Thank you for finding my dog all those years ago," Carter laughed. "Thank Maxwell, he's the one who got lost." "The best thing he ever did," Diana said, and she kissed him there in the park, the same park where their story had really begun, where two people from different worlds had found each other and built something beautiful. Emma and Matthew came running back, the puppy tumbling between them, and the family walked home together as the sun set over Seattle. It was an ordinary moment in an extraordinary life, and Carter had learned that those were the moments that mattered most. He thought about the day he had found Maxwell behind that restaurant, cold and scared and lost. He thought about how close he had come to walking past, to letting someone else deal with it. But he had stopped. He had helped, and that simple act of kindness had led to everything. It had led to Diana, to love, to a family bigger and more wonderful than he had ever imagined possible. It had led to this life, this beautiful, complicated, perfect life. Carter Phillips had been a struggling single father who thought his best days were behind him. But finding a lost dog had changed everything. It had brought him Diana Harper, a woman who saw past their differences to the man he was. Together, they had built a family founded on love, trust, and the simple belief that kindness mattered. As they walked into their home, their children laughing, their dog barking, Diana's hand in his, Carter sent up a silent thank you to Maxwell, wherever he was now. That golden retriever had been lost that morning years ago, but in being found, he had helped Carter and Diana find each other. And they had lived happily ever after, in all the ways that truly mattered. Not because life was perfect, but because they faced it together, with love and commitment and the unwavering belief that they were better together than they ever could have been apart. The end was really just another beginning, Carter thought as he watched Diana help Matthew with his homework while Emma told them about her day. Every day was a new chapter in their love story, and he could not wait to see what came next. Years later, when people asked Diana what her greatest achievement was, she never mentioned her billion-dollar company or her innovations in technology. She always said the same thing: finding love when I wasn't even looking for it, building a family with a man who taught me what really matters. And when people asked Carter how he had ended up married to one of the wealthiest women in the country, he always smiled and said, "I found her dog. Everything else just followed." But they both knew it was more than that. It was about two lonely people who had found each other at just the right moment. It was about a little girl who needed a mother figure and a woman who needed to be needed. It was about a lost dog who brought them all together. It was about love in its purest form, the kind that does not care about bank accounts or social status, the kind that just is. And that kind of love, Carter and Diana had learned, was worth more than all the money in the world. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was real life, with real problems and real solutions. But it was also proof that sometimes, when you least expect it, magic can happen. And sometimes that magic comes in the form of a rain-soaked golden retriever limping through an industrial district at dawn, waiting to be found by exactly the right person. Carter found Maxwell that day, but in many ways, Maxwell found them all. He brought them together and gave them the chance to become a family, and for that, they would be forever grateful. As Carter tucked Matthew into bed that night and kissed Emma goodnight before she retreated to her room to study, as he climbed into bed beside Diana and pulled her close, he thought about all the moments that had led to this one. All the decisions, the chances taken, the fears overcome. "What are you thinking about?" Diana murmured sleepily. "Just how grateful I am," Carter replied. "For all of this, for you." Diana smiled and kissed him softly. "Me too, every single day." They fell asleep in each other's arms, their children safe down the hall, their dog sleeping peacefully in his bed, their lives full and rich and beautiful. It was not the life either of them had planned, but it was better than anything they could have imagined. And it all started with a lost dog, a struggling dad, and a billionaire woman who learned that sometimes the best things in life cannot be bought. Sometimes they can only be found in the most unexpected places, in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes they find you when you are not even looking and change your life forever. That is what happened to Carter and Diana. A chance meeting, a simple act of kindness, and everything changed. They fell in love across all the boundaries that should have kept them apart, and they built something lasting and true. Their love story was not about money or status. It was about connection, about seeing each other for who they really were, about building a life based on mutual respect and genuine affection. It was about two people who completed each other in ways neither of them had known they needed. And every time they told the story of how they met, they always ended it the same way, with gratitude for a golden retriever named Maxwell, who got lost one night and, in being found, helped two people find their way to each other and to the family they were always meant to be.